We have some news to discuss here on Dolphins Today by Chat Sports. I am your host, Nic Rohloff, and I think it's pretty great news for the most part here. Mike McDaniel spoke to media members on Thursday morning and provided updates on some injuries as well as a roster move that the Dolphins made. We'll start with one that caught my eye. Ashtyn Davis, the safety that Miami signed in free agency to a one-year deal, stealing him from the rival New York Jets. He got hurt in the middle of training camp. Remember, it was a foot injury. He was in a walking boot for a while. And just late last week, before the preseason finale, he was out of the walking boot at practice but not participating. Well, McDaniel today claimed that Davis was returning to practice on Thursday and would not rule out his availability for week 1 against the Colts. Because if he did, he would punch him in the face, which obviously isn't the case, but it speaks to Ashtyn Davis' intensity and his want to play on the football field. And this could be an absolute revelation for the Miami Dolphins. When that injury occurred to Davis, many people, including myself, thought he could start the year on IR. Well, it's because of the verbiage that McDaniel used. When describing the injury initially, he said that it's not season-ending, but he will be out for a chunk of time. Well, I hear not season-ending injury, and I'm like, okay, that's good, but that also tells me he's going to be out 2 months. That's not the case. He might be ready for week 1, and even if that's not the case, he should be ready to roll at some point in the first 4 weeks of the season, which is a massive jolt to this Dolphins secondary. And before we get into more around the Dolphins, hit that sub button. I'm trying to set a record here on the channel. Last year, in the month of August, we picked up 1,300 subs. 1315 to be exact. We're trailing that by about 70 right now. Hit that sub button, join the channel for daily Dolphins coverage. I also want to top last year's number. Let's look at the Dolphins safety depth chart now, because after some moves that were made, it's down to 5 on the 53-man. I always projected Minkah Fitzpatrick and Ashtyn Davis to be the starters for this Dolphins back line when everybody was fully healthy. I do think Ifeatu Melifonwu will start early on, but that is how I forecasted it. And with Davis potentially being back sooner rather than later, that could still be the case. But I will say this. When it comes to the season opener on September 7th against the Indianapolis Colts, I would expect Ifeatu Melifonwu to be that second safety, with Elijah Campbell still being that third safety. Davis might have a chance to play in week 1, but if we are going to be honest here, it is probably more smart to have Davis be a healthy and active that game and just give him an extra week to return, and then maybe we can see his Dolphins debut on week 2 against the New England Patriots. That is how I envision things starting in the safety room early this season. But we also got to talk about Tyreek Hill, because he is back after not participating in practices for about 2 to 3 weeks. He was officially at practice on Thursday for the Miami Dolphins. McDaniel asked about Tyreek, said that he will do some stuff on Thursday's practice, and he has just suffered no setbacks. Miami's making sure he suffers no setbacks. And Mike McDaniel said Tyreek Hill looks great. And a couple reports from practice on Thursday reported that Tyreek Hill was moving extremely well. And it is an oblique injury for Tyreek, so it's an interesting one because oblique injuries are very strange. Like, they're not going to impact the way Tyreek Hill is agile-wise or being explosive, but it will impact you reaching up to catch a football. It will impact you getting hit on the side, making maybe some upper body movements. So it's tough. Like, you don't want to risk a setback, but it's not anything that's going to keep him out and really hurt the way he plays. So it's good that Tyreek is back, and I'm glad that he is practicing with the Finns once again and is on path to play in week 1 against the Colts. And I want to welcome Tyreek Hill back to practice. So get down in the comment section and spam those 10s, his jersey number, to welcome Tyreek Hill back to the Dolphins. So we talked about some good news early on in this episode, but I do want to make note, it is not all sunshines and rainbows. Jaylen Wright, the second-year running back, not good injury news here. He actually had a small procedure on his lower body. We know that he got banged up in the joint practice against the Jacksonville Jaguars, didn't play in that preseason game, was seen on the sideline with a compression sleeve. McDaniel said that he did have a small procedure. Now, it will not be season ending, and he expects Jaylen Wright to be back sometime in September. So a very real likelihood that Jaylen Wright could be put on IR. There's also a realistic outcome where he's not. If McDaniel's being truthful in his statement about him being back in September, that would signify, well, he's probably not going to be put on IR, because if you are on IR, you will miss the entire month of September, where Miami's final game, I believe, is like the 29th or 30th of September against the Jets at home. But him not being put on IR isn't the worst thing in the world. I'll also say if he's going to be out for 3 weeks, though, it might be better to put him on IR and bring him back after, so you could sign like a player like Jeff Wilson to the 53-man roster instead of just burning out his practice squad game day elevations. But there's one clear winner in all of this, and I hate to call it a winner because of an injury, but Ollie Gordon RB2 season just continues to go up, up, and up. He has been the most consistent and best running back on the Dolphins roster the entire preseason. Now, Achane, in the one game that he played before suffering an injury in practice, had a great 3 carries for 22 yards against the Bears in week 1. But Gordon, in his preseason, 26 carries, 126 yards, and a touchdown, averaging 4.8 yards per carry. And he went from RB4 to RB2. Now, Jaylen Wright gets hurt. Alexander Mattison out for the year. That will obviously help Ollie Gordon's rise, but he has earned it as well. Physical, 6'2", 226-pound back. He is going to be the short yardage and goal line back for the Dolphins early in the season, and I am feeling good about him potentially making a difference for this football team based off what I've seen in practice and in the preseason. More news to get to here in a second, but how about getting started with Prize Picks, the daily fantasy sports app I play every day? And football season is officially here. College football this weekend. We got professional football next weekend, and I'm getting on the action as I always do. All I do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you can do the same. And if you get your picks right, you can cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money today. Best way to get in on the action, with it being available in more than 40 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. They invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect, double your money, even if one of your picks does not hit. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. My entry for college football week 1 is on screen, but you could take these picks. You could fade my picks. One more time, that's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Links in the description and comments of today's video. Prize Picks. Run your game. In the wake of Jaylen Wright being banged up and having a small procedure, the Dolphins added yet another player to their practice squad, and that is a running back in JaMycal Hasty. Now, JaMycal Hasty actually is the 16th player added to the practice squad, which means, well, the roster is completely full right now. Now, that can be changed at any point. You could release a player from the practice squad, sign a player to the practice squad at any time. I want to make that abundantly clear. But 2 veteran RBs on the practice squad right now, our former friend Jeff Wilson Jr. and now the newest member, JaMycal Hasty. Hasty played with the Patriots in the preseason. He had 22 carries for 77 yards, so not the most efficient back there. Undersized, 5'8", small guy. Has a lot of special teams versatility and special teams history. I will say this. There is a connection between Hasty. He was in San Francisco with the 49ers when Mike McDaniel was still their offensive coordinator. But I am a little bit bummed that the Dolphins did not add a young RB to the practice squad. McDaniel/Greer said that they expect to add multiple running backs to the P squad with the injury to Jaylen Wright, but they also were going to add someone with youth. Well, Hasty and Jeff Wilson are the opposite of youth, and I get it. You might want someone a little bit more veteran and chiseled, considering that your RB2 is a rookie 6th-round pick right now. But I am a little bit bummed there is not a younger running back like a Damian Martinez who went back to the Seattle Seahawks practice squad, or maybe he's trying to find another sharp player. I don't know, but a little bummed on that end. All right, we'll round out the show by showing what Mike McDaniel had to say on a couple new additions for the Miami Dolphins. He talked about Juju Brents, Kendall Lamb, as well as Rasul Douglas. We'll start with the player Miami claimed on waivers on Wednesday, Juju Brents from the Colts. McDaniel said that he loved his redirection, loved his physicality, loved how he competes, thought he was deserving of an active spot. And I agree. I love the upside here on Juju Brents. I think he is going to be someone who develops relatively nicely for the Miami Dolphins. We're talking about a guy that was drafted in the second round in 2023, 6'3", 34-inch arm length, so really lengthy corner, plays with physicality, 9.99 RAS score. This Dolphins defensive coaching staff is a good one, and if they're able to teach and develop Brents and he's able to stay healthy, I truly do believe that he can be someone that finds a role on this Dolphins defense at some point throughout the season. The Dolphins added a lot of players this week, like Rasul Douglas, Juju Brents, Greg Dulcich, and Kendall Lamb with the practice squad regular. Who is the favorite player the Dolphins added this week? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. McDaniel also had something to say about Rasul Douglas, who many people believe could have been signed to be a starting corner for Miami. That might not be the case. We are not in the business of handing over possessions, particularly in a competitive environment. Rasul gives us another step in competitiveness in the room. Overall, the Dolphins are better with him. We weren't plugging and playing. We were putting him in the group and see how that shakes out. So he's not guaranteeing that Douglas will be a starter, and I'm not either. I said this when they signed Rasul Douglas. Does he eventually become a starter for Miami? Probably, but at least to start the year against the Indianapolis Colts, your three starting corners are going to be Storm Duck, Jack Jones, and Jason Marshall Jr. in the nickel. The three pictured, those are your starters. One, because Rasul Douglas has to pick up this entirely new defense and scheme, which it's not easy to do, especially after being in a completely different mindset for the entire offseason as well as the past couple of years playing for the Buffalo Bills. Duck, Jones, and Marshall Jr. know the scheme in and out. They practice together. They have rapport with one another. And those three will be the best connected secondary they can throw out there at the cornerback position. So I do not expect Rasul Douglas to take over as a starter until one of Jack Jones' Storm Duck struggles or potentially gets banged up, or they just feel that Rasul Douglas is the best player for them at the time anyway. Mike McDaniel also talked about Kendall Lamb returning to the Miami Dolphins. He said this is a guy that teammates were extremely happy to see come back. It's nice to have him jump back in the mix. Our team has significantly changed since he was here. And I agree. I'm really happy that Kendall Lamb is ultimately back because the Dolphins' depth at offensive line wasn't very strong. I feel solid about the starters. Paul, Savinaya, Brewer, Daniels, and Jackson, when healthy, I think are a really nice group of five up front. But Larry Borum and Keon Smith had a lot of ups and downs during the preseason, inspiring not a lot of confidence from yours truly. And we know Daniel Brunskill is an interior offensive lineman guy. So you really didn't have a backup offensive tackle that you can trust if Jackson or Paul went down. And although Kendall Lamb did get cut by the Eagles, signifying that they did not see the importance of keeping him around, I think he is going to be solid once again for Miami. Because last year, Kendall Lamb appeared in 500-plus snaps for the Fins and had a pass block grade of 83.1 while not allowing a single sack and only being penalized once. He was very good for Miami before he got hurt for the final couple weeks of the season. So I feel better about the backup offensive tackle situation Miami has going for them currently than I did about a month ago. So I'm glad Kendall Lamb is back in the 305. All right, hit that sub button for daily Dolphins content. We'll be back with a video later today and more videos throughout the weekend. Subscribe, and I'll see you with the video later on. Go Fins.